Excellency Jocelyn Bigirwa, who is going to officially open on behalf of His Excellency Dr. Wakene Kebeyohu, the IGAD Deputy Secretary, who was not able to be in person, but fully extends his gratitude for your time and for your being here with us. So, Madam, please have the floor to make your opening remarks. Thank you.
Members in the room, our development partners present here, our continental stakeholders, AU, NEPAD and IBA, all ladies and gentlemen present, you're all most welcome to this Blue Economy event. Our member states still need support to be able to undertake the work that they have committed to do, their strategies, and therefore we need to collaborate and work together in coming up with innovative resource mobilization strategies and promoting private sector investment in the various related sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin the panel discussion, it's critical that as policymakers and stakeholders, we start reflecting and sharing experiences on what is necessary to advance the blue economy governance and climate resilience in the Horn of Africa and generally in the African region and the entire continent. I therefore wish you all the best in the subsequent discussions, and thank you very much for honoring our event and sparing time to be here with us. Thank you.
Now we will have a presentation. I'd like to invite Dr. Shati Dijen. He's our program manager, Sustainable Environment Protection Unit at IGAD Secretariat.
I would like to give you highlights what we have been doing for the last 5 years with the support of the Sweden government, just to catalyze the discussion. We had a 5-year almost project supported by Sweden. This is we have 3 result areas. The first result area is blue economy approach in IGAD region harmonized. The second result area, the health of marine and aquatic ecosystem is improved. And the third is enhancing capacity, technology, and innovation. I will highlight major achievements we did so far, and we are the first regional organization that cascades the African Union Blue Economy Strategy. What we did in the first result area on the institutionalization of blue economy, we have produced 7 baseline reports and 1 regional synthesis report. We have produced IGAD 5-year blue economy strategy, and we have developed 7 national blue economy strategies. For your information, this project was originally meant for 4 coastal member states. But with the same amount of budget, in agreement with our counterparts, we covered also inland countries. That makes this project more efficient. So we have created awareness. We established IGAD Blue Economy Unit, which is really strong, and supported member state also in terms of resource mobilization. With regard to result 2 on the aquatic ecosystem health, we did an assessment of biodiversity, coastal ecosystem. We have assessment of pollution force to sea. We have analyzed gender and blue economy analysis. We have rehabilitated pilot coastal beach in Djibouti. And also we have organized a campaign for plastic pollution. As you saw from the beginning, from the video, plastic pollution is a big challenge for this region. And in October, we are going to validate ministerially the regional plastic pollution management strategy, which will be a milestone for the support in our member states. The result area, which is knowledge, that's a very important aspect. And that we have created networking and collaboration. On knowledge share, we have organized knowledge share fair, first in Mombasa, then second in Djibouti. The first one was with AOIBA, Dr. Mohammed Sisi, you were there. We are working with SWAM. They were there, and still we are working with SWAM to look forward on the upcoming interventions. So we have a strong North-South knowledge exchange on this area. Women in Blue Economy is a core activities that we have. We have done mainstreaming gender in the Blue Economy project, training, gender analysis, youth and women training again, involving ministries of gender in the National Blue Economy Coordination Platform, thanks to the government of Kenya and the government of Somalia. They have standalone Ministry of Blue Economy. And the other countries have Directorate of Blue Economy in their coordination platform. So where are we heading? We want to enforce regional plastic pollution management strategies. This is a very critical one. To scale up source to sea pollution management approach with SWAM, because our ecosystem, the land ecosystem and the aquatic ecosystem are interrelated. The pollution is coming from the catchment. So we need to really, if we really want to be effective, we need to address the linkage between the source of pollution and on the sink. The other gap we have identified is we have to develop mechanisms to facilitate regional trade on blue economy. By the way, blue economy is mainly a private sector issue. So we need to bring on board the private sector also. We need to look at trade in that way. We need to continue mobilizing resources with our continental mother institution, with AUC, with the director Nyambe. I'm very happy he's here. We want to mobilize resources to implement gender and blue economy concept. We want to establish monitoring, control, and surveillance center in Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. This is a critical problem. Illegal fishing, which will be addressed later by our brother, Dr. Mohammed. Illegal fishing is challenging the region. Only in Somalia water, annually, $500 million is gone for illegal fishing. If we save that, it can come into the regional trade, it will create a big connection among the member states. So we need to develop financing mechanism, develop regional policy on private sector investment, and we want to pilot marine spatial planning, which is, we are very weak, but the SWAM is really strong, and we want to strongly benefit from their cooperation. Thank you very much.
I now have the honor and the pleasure of inviting our panelists. I'll begin with introducing Mr. Hassan. He's the Director of Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy at the African Union Commission. Please, please take up your seat. Mr. Nyambe is a seasoned expert of 28 years of experience. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Jacob Granit, who is the Director General of the Swedish International Development Corporation Agency, SIDA. You're welcome, sir, all the way from across the continent. Dr. Granit brings over 3 decades of international leadership in sustainable development, with a strong focus on water, ocean, and fisheries governance. So I'd like to invite Dr. Kerieko Tobiko. He's the Special Advisor, Climate Change, Environmental Sustainability at the AUD and NEPAD. Karibu. I'd like to invite Dr. Mohammed. Dr. Sise has over 30 years of expertise in fisheries management, aquaculture across Africa, including senior advisory roles with FAO, GIZ, UNIDO, and currently at the AU IBA. He spearheaded the development of the AU policy framework and reform strategy for fisheries and aquaculture. Last but not least, I'd like to invite Ms. Anene Kejala. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Amazing. Yes, you're welcome. Ms. Anene is the maritime lawyer and advisor to, in the Ministry of Transport and Logistics in Ethiopia. She's a maritime lawyer, as I mentioned, with over a decade of experience in maritime law, logistics, and trade facilitation. All right, so we'll begin at the continental level. Mr. Yambe, how has the AUC been advancing the continental blue economy strategy for the national, ensuring national and regional alignment? And what role has the AUC been playing in terms of building the capacity of our member states and the regs in operationalizing the strategy? And from where you sit, looking at the geopolitics, what do you identify as some of the innovative financing towards blue economy? 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I would start by registering our appreciation for being invited into this panel. Of course, that's something that we cannot take for granted. And having said that, in terms of blue economy, as already indicated, is actually part of our wealth as a continent, in the sense that we have got vast resources that we are supposed to harness for own sustainable development. And it's for that reason that Agenda 2063 has a specific goal, which is goal number 6, which talks about involving or at least deploying the blue environment to be able to accelerate development. So in terms of our role, we have a specific role, and that's to champion policy development within the continent. But in addition to that, as a continental body, we deal with matters of coordination, coordinating programs, implementation of policies, frameworks, and so forth, as well as monitoring and reporting to our heads of states and government, in addition to others such as capacity building as well as resource mobilization. So yes, we have got the blue economy strategy, and now what we've been doing has been actually to support member states for them now to also domesticate the continental framework on blue economy, and to that extent 15 member states have been supported. And when I say we, I mean the AU. It means I'm including the contribution of AU, IBA, and AUDA, NEPAD in that process. But of course, they will speak for themselves. But yes, we have collectively supported the 15 member states for them to domesticate the blue economy strategy so that they've got their own national strategies. But blue economy to us is not viewed in isolation because we have got other frameworks or policies that have got a bearing also on blue economy. For example, the climate change and resilience development strategy also applies on the blue environment. We talk of the biodiversity strategy and action plan also applies on the blue environment, as well as the what we call the green recovery action plan, which is one of our frameworks that is aimed at building back better after COVID, or building back greener after COVID. So yes, we have supported member states in terms of development of policies because we believe that putting up an enabling environment is actually conducive in terms of what we want to achieve. But in addition to that, we have also been supporting member states in terms of capacity building. For your information, of late, we are focusing a lot in terms of supporting member states to be able to access climate finance. And there are a lot of opportunities even within the blue space where member states can be able to tap into the resources that are supposed to be supporting climate actions, such as resources from the Green Climate Fund. And for your own information, for example, we have got 15 member states that we have brought together to develop one continental program, although that is aimed at building security, water security. It also has benefits because water is about, it's what we refer to as blue. So basically just say that we are not just looking at the oceans or the rivers and the lakes, but we are looking at the whole ecosystem. So yes, we are providing member states with that kind of capacity as well. And we have also been partnering with the AUIPA, who are part of us, as well as AUDA NEPAD also to provide support in other areas. And also I would want to highlight the fact that recently, as recent as July, we launched what we call the Circular Economy Action Plan for the continent. And that is aimed at helping the continent to have zero waste, if you will, to make sure we recycle everything, make sure that we eliminate the issues of plastics and so forth, which have been covered by Shet in his presentation. We started some time back to work on a project or a program that involves women in blue economy, and that is something that we are trying to finalize now, so that at least we can be able to also contribute towards the empowerment of women as well as the youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yambe. I think you have clearly elaborated what AUC does, particularly even within the confinement of their mandate. We clearly know the division of labor within the AUC, the regs and the member states, and seeing how you've been able to explain how the continental strategy has been domesticated, at least 15 member states from what you've said, and as well as, of course, the important role of supporting the countries in operationalizing that national domestic or national blue economy strategies on ground. Interesting to also note that there's already an ongoing multi-country program being designed on water security. And I'm hoping to hear maybe as we move to the AUD and NEPA that has been advancing quite some good work under the Team Africa for mobilizing resources. I'm hoping that we'll hear some more from the AUD and NEPA. And maybe going straight away to AUD and NEPA, how has it been in terms of advancing the blue economy investments on the continent? And from where you sit at the continental level and leading the development agency of the AUC, what successful models have you been able to identify worthy of sharing that could inform the blue economy development? And one of the things that also has been really a conversation that we've been having over time is the role of the private sector. Where is their space as private sector in terms of the blue economy? Over to you, Dr. Adi.
Thank you so very much, moderator and colleagues. And AUDA NEPAD, as has been mentioned, is the entity that is responsible for coordinating implementation of the priority projects of the African Union. And we work very closely, of course, with our colleagues, the AGC, and IGAD, and those other organizations. And secondly, on the issue of programming, AUDA NEPAD has helped a number of, and I think this was mentioned, work together with the UC, IGAD, and other RECs, regional entities, to mainstream the AU climate resilient development strategy. And also in addition, the climate, the blue economy strategy. In terms of generation of knowledge, we have worked with other entities, we have worked with member states in generating knowledge for evidence-based decision making. For instance, the foresight analysis undertaken and the project codename FishGov2 have highlighted specific priorities at the regional and continental levels. And these findings predict changes to water circulation systems to increase rainfall around the Horn of Africa. I'm sure we'll be discussing about this. We also have the programs that the Blue Economy Program, which we now are about to launch, which we call the AfriBlue program, which has two tracks. Firstly, the financing facility. It is a 15 billion for 10-year period. So it's a financing facility, $3 billion, and then also a partnership investment framework, bring together, as you mentioned, private sector, because the role of private sector is absolutely critical. Investment is absolutely critical. In terms of value addition and value chain, moderator, and one classic example, and I'm sure we have among us delegates from Tanzania, the seaweed value chain. I think the focus has been fisheries and blue foods, but also other components like the seaweed value addition. And this is very critical, particularly in terms of the climate correlation with blue economy. We have a multi-stakeholder mechanism for public-private partnership and engagement. As you know, we host the World Aquaculture Society, the African chapter. And our organization has leveraged this through annual aquaculture conferences of stakeholders. And I think the last one was held in Uganda, I think a few months ago. So, regarding the issue of private sector, the private sector I mentioned about the AfriBlue, and we've setting up as a de-risking and pipeline creation. We anticipate to launch that program sometime next year. Of course, we will be discussing with our colleagues working together, leveraging on capital markets and diversifying co-financing for the AfriBlue. The point here is investors need two things. They need to be covered, their risk to be covered, and they need to be assured about the enabling environment. And we're working with member states to ensure that they harmonize their legislations, their policies, to create the enabling environment to promote and incentivize private sector investment. That's what I wish to say for now. I'm sure we'll continue with this discussion. Thanks so much.
Now, maybe shift to Dr. Jacob. Now, as already nicely put, Sweden is supporting the blue economy agenda, a new concept, well embraced at continental level, regional level. We saw member states, strategies already formulated. We heard about the issue, say, we're not short of policies now. How do we get this into action? How do we really get these boots on the ground to see this translate into change? So where you sit at CEDA, how is your CEDA strategy geared towards the blue economy of our region and the natural resource management? And specifically with the vast experience you have, how do we scale up the source to sea approach in combating pollution? We've had the issue of pollution being a concern from the presentation of Dr. Shate. When he said the scene, we see that a big problem in our region. How do we scale up and build the climate resilience we need? And of course, now from the continent you're coming from, the north, what is it that we can draw in terms of lessons that we can learn down south here? Over to you, Dr. Hari.
First of all, of trying to respond a little bit to why is Sweden so engaged in this particular topic. Management of our oceans is something that is critical to our country. And as you just heard, being a small country, 10 million people in the northern temperate zones, we are very much depending on our coast and our sea. We have the two semi-enclosed sea basins surrounding Sweden, the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. Those two seas has been the link for Sweden to be able to trade, to navigate around the globe, and part of creating wealth in Sweden. So our engagement, of course, in IMO and also in WMU, the World Maritime University, has been natural for us to be engaged at the global level, and we are a proud host of the World Maritime University in Malmö, Sweden, since the early 1980s. But the issue is of course, how do we engage more in the blue economy beyond navigation? And for Sweden in the 70s, we started to realize that we have been severely mismanaging both our freshwater resources, but also our marine space. So there were very strong signs of that. Signal in the noise, that's what I can say, with particularly a very heavy eutrophication, that is runoff of nutrients from point source pollutions, from our wastewater management systems, but also from agriculture, and point source pollution from the heavy industry. So suddenly it became visible to all citizens that we were actually destroying the habitats that we survive upon. Swimming became impossible, cleaning up became really, really expensive. So in the 70s, a very strong programs, and as you know, this was also at the time of the UN conference on human development in Sweden. Massive investments into point source pollution took place. And no, just I would argue an economic reason behind that. We needed clean water for our industries, for our health, for agriculture, so it was driven by those issues. But the sea areas respond more slowly than the freshwater systems, as you know. So in the 1990s, it became apparent that we had polluted our Baltic Sea system. Heavy overfishing, heavy pollution, and also the eutrophication problem I just mentioned. But all of those, both the North Sea and the Baltic Sea are surrounded by 10 other nations. So it was the realization we cannot tackle this alone. So in the early 70s, the Baltic Marine Helsinki Commission was established. And as you may know, from the geopolitical point of view, this was the Iron Curtain. So it was Soviet Union on the one side, and then Western countries on the other side. But with totally different, as you know, economic development perspectives. But managing the environment became our common denominator, because everybody depended on that. So the Helsinki Commission was one of those first commissions globally that really tried jointly to develop policies to tackle marine pollution for the benefit of all nation states around. So, and with the Baltic Marine Commission put in place, a program to combat pollution was established, supported heavily by the World Bank. And at that time, talking about Nepal here, 120 hotspots were identified to combat pollution. And today, I think we have 9 of those major hotspots left. But it was a bankable project put up with the support of the World Bank, with the support of NEFCO, with our Nordic Development Bank system, to address these issues. So Sweden invested heavily now later on in Russia, water treatment plants and so forth. Really strong collective action. So this has been part of the motivation for Sweden to engage so heavily in this, because we have seen so clearly the linkages between how we manage our freshwater systems, our coast, and our oceans, and how closely those are linked together. So this concept that we are talking about, from source to sea, is just to illustrate that it all comes together. Now, it's also, we have been noticing very clearly the impacts of climate change on our both freshwater and but in particular the marine ecosystems. And the Baltic Sea is a very shallow sea. It's 40 meters in average depth compared with the oceans, which is 3 kilometers in depth. So everything that happens, the man-made impacts are visible in the Baltic. So now we have severe marine heat waves, which is a concept that is very visible. It impacts on the breeding grounds of fishes, but also now we can begin to monitor the release of methane from the shallow coastal lines, which is not what we want to see. So to combat that, we need to really reinforce and work heavily on restoring our ecosystems, building back seabeds that would sequester carbon, restore fishing habitats, and most importantly, combat fishing and also illegal fishing, which is not only a problem here, but is a global problem. So the authority that was mentioned, that I had the fortune or the opportunity to manage for 7 years, managed both freshwater systems, marine coast, and was responsible for fisheries management and fisheries control. So, one first point, the challenge that we have all experienced has driven the response. Now, the second point to be made is the next phase of this. And this really comes to the blue economy concept. How do you attract now investments into both restoration, but also economic livelihoods? Public financing is never enough for that. So you have to identify other ways and means of attracting that finance, which NEPAD colleagues just mentioned. But marine space is very different from land space. Spatial planning on land is difficult as it is, but managing spatial planning in the marine space is very, very difficult because it's far away. So the concept of marine spatial planning has been extremely important for a country like Sweden, but also for the neighboring states where we collectively manage our resources. So our marine spatial planning strategies, they include very strong enforcement on energy development, offshore wind, oil and gas, in your case maybe, but we don't have that in the areas, but offshore wind is very important for us. Transmission of pipelines for gas and for electricity. Fisheries management, zoning for fishing, navigation, that Madam here knows much more than I do about, but ensuring navigational lanes and so forth. Hard security, a very growing concept in Scandinavia. As you know, we are fighting severe wars in our region as well now in Europe. So hard security needs to be planned as well. Extraction of minerals, another point of view, and then marine protection and restoration. So combining all of this into a zoning and planning tool has been instrumental to unlock the blue economy. And we are doing it in country in a very, very sort of collective approach with municipalities, with regional government, state governments, but of course also with the private sector who are utilizing these resources to get permits for the development work. And then with our neighbors. And because we are, most of us, EU members, we also have joint policies in that regard, the Marine Spatial Planning Directive and also the Marine Water Framework Directive, several of them that brings us now together in a legal way as well. So we may have good policies, as you said, sir, but the planning part of this is extremely important, so we do it right. So that we actually allow investments in a way that will be sustainable for everybody moving forward. So we do not destroy these very, very sensitive ecosystems. So the blue economy, from our point of view, is unlocking a lot of opportunities. We heard food production, aquaculture, and so forth is now growing, but it can only grow if we have a sound and functioning ecosystem. That's why we have to invest so much resources into restoration. And we hope that that can be avoided, of course, so we can invest in the future instead of investing in the old sins that we have to deal with. So my final point here is, of course, the work that you are doing here at IGAD, and not only this region, but through EAC and also in SADC and so forth. Very, very important work. And I'm happy and glad that we can, institutions from Sweden, not only from my former agency, Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management, SWAM, that you saw on the picture here, can participate, but all our other agencies as well, involving in energy planning, production, and food production, and so forth. But not to least also say the innovation part of this. So with the blue economy and with IGAD, we also see a lot of technical opportunities where we can train some of our resources. Not to say at least in the monitoring side, we have new technologies in underwater surveillance, drones, underwater drones that are used for monitoring, combined with satellite technologies and AI. Very, very powerful tool to look at the depths of the sea, the coast, and the planning part. So a lot of new technology that we can deploy, and that we are deploying with colleagues in Somalia and others, and it's very, very exciting times. So just to say, finish there and say that this good restoration of these habitats, looking at this from a holistic point of view, is driving innovation. And for those who might be interested what Swedish innovation looks like and comes out of this type of work, we have a matchmaking booth up at the exhibition where one can go in a QR code and look into 10 different sectors: energy storage, offshore wind, battery recycling, and so forth. That partly comes from our work on building this blue economy. So we look forward to work with you in the planning, institutional part, but of course also in the financing part, that they do come together. And just to say, finally, on Swedish aid policy or development policy now, we look at how can we be partner with you in growth and job creation based on good and sound planning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jakob, for... Let's switch to the national level. Now, let me speak to Ms. Hanene. In the context of Ethiopia, first of all, tell us, why is the blue economy located in the Ministry of Transport and Logistics? And then, how are you doing coordination of all the stakeholders in the blue economy efforts? Your lessons from that. Because one of the things we've been observing is also the convening, the power to convene at the national level. How do you do that? We'd like to hear that experience from the Ethiopian side. And of course, you've had the regional perspective, you've had the continental perspective, you've had our development partner perspective. What are your expectations beyond what has been nicely presented by Dr. Shati, the progress that has been made? Looking ahead, what are your expectations from AU, from IGAD, and the like? And of course, are there any specific best practice or good practice, maybe, let me use good practice modules you could share from your experience in Ethiopia? It's heavy loaded, but I know you've managed time. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, moderator. To give you a little bit of a background or context about why Ethiopia is more focused on blue economy, the transport aspect of the blue economy. Blue economy, as you all know, is a broad concept, but for when you see Minister of Transport leading the blue economy in Ethiopia, it may sound unconventional for many countries, but Ethiopia's position in this state is unique. We are a landlocked nation. We're far from the coastal water. So we need to redefine or reimagine what blue economy means for a landlocked nation. We did a research and we identified 5 sectors that are hugely contributing to blue economy. The first one was, of course, the energy sector. The energy sector, as of now, we're celebrating, as Ethiopian, we're celebrating the inauguration of the Great Renaissance Dam. That is a big success story for Ethiopia, it is also a blue economy flagship project based on water, so that's a clean energy. And one of the biggest part was the energy. Then we identified the fishery resources, the second from agricultural aspect. Then tourism was there, then mining was there. These are the main blue economy sectors we identified as a nation. So once we identified, we went to drafting the strategy. As one of the panelists rightly said, we might draft a good and attractive strategy, but unless we have an institution which truly understands the concept and interested in implementing that, it will be very difficult. At the time we drafted this strategy, the Ministry of Transport and the Maritime Authority was highly engaged and more keen. So who understand better was the first agenda, but later, when we think of energy and fishery resource and the rest of the blue tourism, logistics and transport and connectivity and trade facilitation is really key. So transport is a key for each sectors we're talking in the blue economy, and that could be a glowing factor. So if the Ministry of Transport and Logistics is able to lead the blue economy strategy in the country, it would be ideal. That's how we reimagined the blue governance in the context of a landlocked nation. So coming to the project, we are proudly explaining to most of our colleagues is the seafaring project. It's a very transformative success story, but it's not as big as the Renaissance Dam, but it has a huge potential in transforming livelihood of each nation, each persons who are engaged in that sector. We focused on developing and investing on human capital. 10 years ago, there was a huge challenge in the country. There were a lot of engineering graduates from universities, specifically from civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering, with a degree in the field, and most of them were not able to secure jobs, so there was a huge unemployment, and the unemployment rate was around 27.2% at that time. So we were highly engaged in reducing the unemployment rates in the country. That's when we come up with training those young graduates who are coming fresh from the universities, from engineering colleges and campuses. So we designed a course to bridge them into marine engineers and marine electrotechnical officers and navigators. So we invested on 2 institutions. We established 2 training institutions near the inland waters we have in the country. And we managed to train. First, we took a couple of hundred students and we tested them by securing a job for them on international vessels, seagoing vessels. Then it was a bit difficult to break the market, which was dominated by Philippines. Yes, Filipino, India, Ukraine, Russia. So, and when people ask, like, Ethiopian seafarers, like, where is Ethiopia? They don't even have a sea. How come there are seafarers? But lucky enough, we managed to crack that idea and worked on the quality of the human capital we're producing here. Now, as a nation, we have around 6,000 seafarers who are sailing on international seagoing vessels. And these are a success story we're proudly making, and not only creating a job for this for these graduates, the success story is also we are making remittances coming in. The numbers may look small at this stage. We are making around 45 million USD per year from remittance. And we believe that this will grow in time as the rank and the level of our seafarers grow on those international maritime activities. Beside this, we recently worked on gender inclusion. As you all know, the maritime sector is a male-dominated sector. Everywhere you go, seafarers are mostly male. But we try to break this barrier, and we intake 28 female graduates from electrical engineering degree, and we're now training them to get on board international vessel and make the space also open for gender inclusion. So these are the small success stories we can share, but hopefully it will grow big and we're targeting to become one of the seafaring nations globally. So our target is in the coming 5 to 10 years, we are targeting to become the 5th nation in the globe to be a seafaring nation. And yes, hopefully we'll reach there with hard work and dedication. Finally, we have heard a lot from development partners and partners here. As a country, we really need support in terms of financing, especially in infrastructure development. We need to work hard on the institutions that are training seafarers and also engaging other activities, so financing, capacity building, and knowledge exchanging. In this regard, that's what we expect from our NEPAD, AOI-BAR, SIDA, and IGAD. So we want to keep this engagement and get this kind of support for the blue economy development in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I will go, we have about 20 minutes or so. So I'll speak to AUI now, especially the work you do at the continental level, but the technical, particularly around advancing aquatic biodiversity and ecosystem. So what is AUI currently doing? What are the strategies that you're advancing towards this space on aquatic biodiversity and ecosystem management, and some of the work you're doing also, or the mechanisms that are in place to combat the illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing on the continent, and how are being able to coordinate such projects with RECs and member states? Over to you.
Our intervention in the blue economy sector, when I say ours, it's AUI-BAR, of course, our parent department, the African Union Commission, was based on the African Blue Economy Strategy. The African Blue Economy Strategy has 5 thematic areas. The first thematic area has to do with fisheries, aquaculture, and conservation of aquatic ecosystem. The next is maritime shipping, maritime trade, and enforcement. The third is climate change and environmental sustainability. The fourth one is renewable energy, innovative industries. And the last one is cross-cutting, where we talk about poverty elevation, talk about gender mainstreaming, and the like. So the project we are implementing is implemented right across the different ecosystems. The African continent is endowed with the marine and the freshwater ecosystem. The marine ecosystem, we have adjacent to the very large marine ecosystem, the Guinea current, the Angolas, Somali current, and also the Red Sea and the
Canary Current, Mediterranean. And these are highly productive ecosystems, but they have their own challenges because they inhabit a lot of biodiversity, but more importantly, the fish resources. But we have a lot of challenges in terms of overfishing, in terms of impact of climate change, pollution, a whole host of marginalization of communities that are dependent on these resources. Of course, we have transboundary freshwater ecosystem, Lake Victoria and the like. So we receive funding in order to operationalize the African Blue Economy Strategy from CEDA in 2021 in October to strengthen the institutional capacity for conservation of aquatic biodiversity for the benefit of AU member states and regional institutions. This was relatively a gray area. In most of the 55 countries, you have the Ministry of Fisheries doing their own, Ministry of Environment doing their own. So we had to look for a strategy how to build coalitions so that they can work together. Because they depend on each other. Even the renewable energy, using the blue energy mix, you will be impacting on the aquatic biodiversity. Oil, gas, mining, all of these are impacted on the aquatic biodiversity. So wherever we went in the member state or at regional level, in order to support the conservation of aquatic biodiversity, we had to ensure that all the key players are there. So what we did, in order to inform our intervention, we commissioned various studies, the existing situation, to identify the partners, because we were not going to invent the wheel, to identify the partners that are involved in the conservation of aquatic biodiversity, and also what are the issues. And because of this intervention, the first thing we did was to try to bring countries together, sharing what is transboundary lakes or transboundary marine ecosystem, in order to come together to have a harmonized strategy for sustainable management of those resources. In the Lake Victoria area, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, we work with the Lake Victoria Fish Organization because it's a regional body constituted by this country to develop regional protocols, how can they harmonize their policy for holistic management of the aquatic biodiversity. So we supported these countries, and they were able to come together, harmonize management, because the issues were identified, first of all, pollution, habitat destruction, conflict resolution also was there. A whole host of issues were identified, ecosystem integrity. So we had to develop a mechanism how they can come together to manage. We went to the Central African region between the Gabon, Republic of Gabon, and Republic of the Congo, because they are sharing the large marine ecosystem shared between them in the Atlantic Ocean. We also intervened there through a regional fisheries body. Because we are not going directly to the member state, we are using regional approach. For example, in the intervention in Lake Victoria, we invited Dr. Ishet, and IGAD was part of that intervention in order to support them. So they were aware of what we are doing, and the Regional Economic Committee, EAC, were also part of that one. So once we were able to do that, then we thought it was necessary to demystify some key tools for sustainable blue economy, the marine spatial planning, for example. We thought it was important to advance the process on the continent. But the only way we were able to do that was through the intervention in gaps, when we identified gaps among partners that are already working in that blue economy space. For example, in the northern Mozambique channel, in the Indian Ocean, comprising of Mozambique, Madagascar, Tanzania, and Comoros, the WWF and the Nairobi Convention were already working in that place. So we had a collaborative mechanism with them in order to advance marine spatial planning process in that region. Because what the lesson we learned, that the marine spatial planning process is at a very rudimentary stage of the continent. It's not advanced at all. So we have to start with the technical guidelines. What are the processes we have to go through to build the institutional framework in order to advance the process? Because first of all, you have to do study on the state of marine resources. What are there? What are the aquatic biodiversity? What are the issues there? Then you have to identify what we call ecologically, biologically sensitive areas. Then what are the other activities taking place there? Because it's not only fisheries. You have mining there. You have transportation there. Energy, offshore energy is taking place there. So that is the essence of marine spatial planning. You try to conserve the resources, but also to minimize conflict among the players. And we intervene at the transboundary level through collaborative mechanisms. We went back to the Central African region, between to West Africa, in the Atlantic Ocean, between Benin and Togo, the Nairobi Convention. This convention are statutory body of the United Nations Environment Programme. So in the Atlantic Ocean, we have the Nairobi Convention. There also, we advanced the process of the study on the state of marine resources. And what was lacking was a high political endorsement of the study. Because of her intervention, the minister, the respective minister in Benin and Togo endorsed the study. So the sustainability aspect comes in because the process continued with the Abidjan Convention, though we are out. So that is one aspect we did. Then we also thought it was necessary to build capacity and also protect the resources, marine protected area. This is a key tool for governance to protect the blue economic resources. Here, we also conducted a study in the 5 regions of the continent and to see what are the ongoing initiatives in that. In the East African region, in the Indian Ocean, between Kenya and Tanzania, there was already an ongoing program by WAMSA, West Indian Ocean Marine Science Organization, for the transboundary marine conservation area, wanted to put in place. So we collaborated to advance that process. And the ministers and the members of parliament from the 2 countries visited that place to see. So because we are eventually able to develop what we call the memorandum of understanding for joint management of that shared ecosystem with Tanzania and Kenya in the Indian Ocean. And it has gained traction through political endorsements. At the same time, we work also in the Central African region, between the Gabon also and Congo, for the transboundary marine protected area. In order to enhance, we developed a roadmap because we recognize 2 of the key challenges were implementation and governance. There were a lot of issues there. Because you can establish a marine protected area, but there has to be a coordination with all the entities that are involved. It has to be inclusive. You have to take gender issues into consideration. The other players, you have mining, oil and gas exploration, they are all taking place there. So the decision, the roadmap to effectively govern the marine protected area, you have to take that into consideration. And whilst we are working at the transboundary space, we also receive what we call demand-driven requests from Madagascar, from Gabon, from Senegal, in order to help them establish an effective governance mechanism for the national marine protected area. Through the CEDA project, we are also able to intervene in that one. So these are very critical interventions because what we are able to bring into focus, wherever we intervene, we make sure all the players are involved to build coalition in whatever roadmap we are going to develop. So all the players are there, we bring them on board. So it's not going to be the fisheries ministry working in silos or the environment ministry or the gender ministry. No, we did not take, we make sure we bring them on board as a collaborative approach. The next one is called mitigating climate change.
Sorry, we have about 10 minutes to wrap up.
Okay,
so if you could just 2 minutes.
Yeah. Mitigating, we also work across the continent to put in the necessary measure in place using nature-based solution and working with women in Gazi Bay and also in the seaweed area to mainstream issues of climate and environmental coordination. Then what we did in order to sustain this achievement, the project had the provision to establish centers of excellence for training and research in aquatic biodiversity conservation and ecosystem management. So we are able to do that. 3 institutions have been identified on the continent. We have the Pwani University in Ghana, endorsed by the head of state and government. We have the Pwani University in Kenya, Legon Ghana University, and also Nairobi University. These are very critical interventions we are able to do.
I think the key messages emanating from all the discussions is the importance of effective governance. You can hear governance at all the levels. We need to ensure that we have the right policy, the right commitment, the right institutions at all levels to drive this agenda. The issue of implementation is critical, that all that has been agreed, endorsed at the global level, national level, regional level, requires to be implemented. There must be a delivery mechanism. And I think for me that is the highlight of what has been emphasized in our discussion.
Sitio